in this edition of Southern Newsweek. Students dress up in Roman togas for Orientation Week. Plans are unveiled to protect Dunedin's coastline. And motorcyclists traverse 2,000 kilometres in a weekend rally. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. First year students were welcomed to University Life and Dunedin at the University of Otago's annual Convocation ceremony. Guest speaker and Deputy Prime Minister Grant Robertson offered some of the same advice he'd given first years when he was the OUSA president in 1993.
Here's what you gotta do, you just hold on. Change is coming, hold on, yeah.
University of Otago graduate Lani Alo performs a musical number to an appreciative crowd of first years and staff at this year's Convocation, the annual welcoming of new students to Otago. Former OUSA President Grant Robertson has now risen to the rank of Deputy Prime Minister, but he recalls the advice he wrote for young students back in 1993.
I wrote a welcome for students. In it, I dropped a couple of lines from a brand new TV show called Shortland Street, just to show my cred. And I finished my welcome by urging my fellow students to take it easy, but to take it. It can be a stressful time, a full-on experience starting out as a tertiary student. And hence my chilled out vibes of saying, take it easy. But equally, opportunity abounds for you, and there's no better time to grab it than now. Take it easy, but take it.
This year's OUSA President Michaela Waite-Harvey says it's important to discover what motivates you.
For me, I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors, and often I lean on their struggles to uplift myself. Find that thing which gives you drive. That may be your parents, your siblings, your children.
And outgoing Vice-Chancellor Harleen Hayne says the students are likely to encounter people who will become their friends for life.
I encourage you to choose those friends wisely. Pick people who will make you a better version of yourself. Friends that you can laugh with and cry with. Friends that you can trust to have your back and keep you safe. Friends who will accept you just the way you are, but at the same time will challenge you to be a better version of who you are now.
Preliminary lectures at the University of Otago begin this Friday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
And the University of Otago Union Hall looked more like a Roman forum from 2,000 years ago earlier this week. The would-be senators bedecked in togas were entertained by musical acts from across the country.
The first of two sold-out orientation nights drew a crowd of about 1,500 students out for the annual O-Week Toga Party. Due to uncertainty of COVID-19 restrictions, the event, which has previously been held at the Forsyth Bar Stadium, was put on at the University of Otago Union Hall, a concert venue dating back to the 1970s. Musical entertainment included local band Loose and Colourful, Auckland artists No Comply and Syrup, plus two DJs from George FM. The well-behaved crowd was looked after by about 40 Are You OK volunteers, plus a larger presence of security guards. In Otipoti, Dunedin, the South Today.
The Dunedin City Council has announced concept plans for the future of the city's beaches, which would cost $100 million over a number of years. The council now wants public feedback on a variety of plans aimed at conserving the coastline and more.
Plans to mitigate coastal erosion on Dunedin's beaches could come at a significant price tag.
Across the whole section of coast, if we were to look at it all and if all the stuff was to be at least considered, it would be hundreds of millions. Yeah.
Concept plans for the future of St Clair, Middle and St Kilda beaches up to Lawyer's Head have been unveiled by the Dunedin City Council. A redesigned seawall at St Clair, moving an old landfill away from Middle Beach and creating better access at St Clair are all possibilities for Dunedin's coast over the next 100 years.
Through this we want to tackle some big challenges like the landfill at Kettle Park and erosion of the beach, but there's also opportunities to look at some of the other things like improving access and potentially some of the environment and wildlife, things like that as well.
Options include shifting playing fields, bolstering sand dunes, and installing groins or breakwaters. The DCC understands some ideas won't please everyone, which is why the Council is opening up a consultation period set to end near the end of March.
You're right, certain options can negatively impact surf amenity and surf break, which is obviously a really important consideration going forward. Yeah.
Following community consultation and feedback from about 1,200 people, the Council has created a series of images to give people a range of options to think about.
The best outcome is that people come to our workshops and get involved and let us know what they think and share their thoughts with each other and one another and tell their friends to come along and get involved. That's the best outcome. We want this to be something that's really well informed by our community.
The information is on the Council's website, and the next round of consultation runs until March 29th. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Over 200 motorcyclists took part in a mammoth 48-hour rally last weekend. Starting in Oamaru, they rode across the South Island, each covering 2,000 kilometres.
These motorbike riders are ready to spend much of the next 2 days in the saddle as they ride around the South Island in this year's TT2000 rally.
The TT2000 is an annual motorcycle challenge thrown out to all motorcyclists in New Zealand to ride a known course, different course each year, and that course entails around about 50 checkpoints all over the South Island that need to cover 2,000 kilometres in 48 hours.
Starting and finishing in Oamaru, the bikers will cover 2,000 kilometres as they travel to 50 different locations in the South Island, taking pictures to prove they've been to each checkpoint. This year's theme is Scotland, with riders visiting places such as Duntroon, Roxburgh and Dunedin. The event is now in its 13th year, and organiser Wayne Pohl says the number attending is constantly growing.
2009, they had about 60 riders, I think. This year, we've had 270 riders register, and we've got 231 people starting here today.
The TT2000 is set to finish back at Oamaru on midday Sunday. In Oamaru, the South Today.
Still to come up after the break on Southern Newsweek, a kowai tree is planted to commemorate 100 years of Women's Institutes. And a Dahlia Show is hosted in Invercargill, so catch this and more after the break. Welcome back. The New Zealand Federation of Women's Institutes has planted a kowai at Dunedin's Botanic Gardens to mark 100 years since the organisation was formed. The Federation was started in 1921 to provide further education for women.
There was plenty of fun and friendship when over a dozen members of the New Zealand Federation of Women's Institutes planted a kowai in Dunedin's Botanic Garden to mark 100 years since the organisation was founded. Local leader Mary Reet says when they first started in 1921, there was a strong focus on providing education for women.
A lot of women obviously at the time were finding it hard to get the same education as men. And quite interesting, if you look at the history, some of the women back there were learning how to change tractor tyres and, how to do stuff like that.
The sapling they've planted is a large-leaved kowai, which occurs naturally in the central east of the North Island and was chosen in recognition of the area where the Women's Institute's founder, Anne Spencer, lived. It's one of about 40 kowai being planted across New Zealand to celebrate the centenary.
Hopefully there'll be another group of women here who are still believing in Institute, celebrating 200 years, because we're always going to need fun and friendship.
Since the Federation of Women's Institutes began, the activities have evolved. With education now being an easier goal for women, the Federation instead puts a lot of effort into fundraising for good causes.
One of our charities supports young people who are doing education, so we make education grants, and we also raise money for medical research as well. So we're not just tea and scones.
The planting was followed with a picnic lunch and socialising in the garden. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The sprawling grounds of Larnach Castle have found their way into a top British gardening magazine. The owner of the Scottish-style baronial hall says she's pleased with the recognition of the world-class European garden.
The gardens of Dunedin's Larnach Castle are now featured in the prestigious British magazine Country Life, a publication dedicated to the best of European-style gardens. The castle's owner, Margaret Barker, is understandably pleased with the recognition.
With its robust and graphic flora, Larnach has masses of inspiration for those who want to stay ahead of the curve. So what the article, summing up the article, is it's saying that we're leading the way.
The gardens have already received a 6-star rating from the New Zealand Gardens Trust as a garden of international significance.
But we know that we're appreciated because we get so many visitors who tell us every day how much they've enjoyed themselves.
Barker says it's been a team effort putting the garden together, and to be in her favourite publication is a huge thrill.
Well, it's tremendously exciting. Absolutely thrilled to get the international recognition and that we're part of the history of the culture of houses and gardens.
The garden itself is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Well, there may be something a little more generative in the water at Dunedin's Kavanagh College. New additions to the school roll may prompt some people to think they're seeing double again and again and again.
They say good things typically happen in 3s, but 4s? Dunedin's Kavanagh College is experiencing its largest Year 7 intake in a number of years. But pupils and staff could think they're seeing double, as for the first time in many years, there's 4 sets of twins beginning Year 7.
I think it's the first time in 26 years that we've had 4 sets of twins in the school. It's always an interesting time to get to know everybody's name and to learn all about them without them looking identical at the same time, so it creates a new challenge for us.
There are the Kettish twins, the Marker twins, the Davis twins, and representing the young women's team, the Mortane twins. The Kettish twins admit to pranking teachers in the past.
He wore my glasses and went to my class with my bag, and then I did the exact same but without my glasses. And then the teachers didn't figure it out, but a few other people, classmates did, and they just hid it.
I got caught like halfway through math. I got caught.
Yeah.
But the school's principal warns them double trouble could have double consequences, like double homework.
Well, that's right. There's got to be some justice somewhere along the line.
In some cases, twins are said to feel each other's pain. The Marker twins say this isn't the case, as youngest twin Levi has had more than 100 surgeries when he was younger. The feeling each other's pain phenomenon is also dispelled by other twins.
People used to say, does it hurt if I punched one?
Yeah, and then they would practice. They wouldn't punch him though. They would punch me, and then I'd be like, did he feel it? And then he'd be like, no.
Siblings can typically argue a bit.
There's nothing else.
Yes, we have to share our toys.
Oh no, I don't. Well, yeah, kind of.
Can't decide on anything.
I would think there are some pretty big disadvantages though, like sharing a room and having someone who is often pestering you.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout their interviews, all 4 sets of twins niggled at each other a bit, but while knowing they've got each other's back, the Mortane twins couldn't agree who is the more annoying.
I think the youngest just annoy the oldest the most.
Yeah. No, the oldest is...
No.
Yeah, it's the oldest.
That's the youngest.
That's the oldest.
Oldest.
Kate Nicholson says some of the twins will be in the same classes, while others are set to study apart, in keeping with their family's wishes. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Invercargill got to host this year's South Island National Dahlia Show, which attracted exhibitors from as far away as Nelson. The flower is popular with all gardeners, and this year's show attracted over 700 entries.
The Southland Indoor Bowls Centre was overtaken by flowers for the South Island National Dahlia Show, with floral colours and perfumes filling the hall. Show convener Walter Jack says dahlias are a bloom that attracts a lot of attention from male gardeners.
Most men dodge flowers, but with dahlias, a lot of men get caught up with dahlias, and we've been overseas quite a few times to Australia, America, England, and it's probably 80% men that grow dahlias.
Jack's been growing dahlias for 50 years and says the flowers are relatively easy to grow, but it's another thing getting them up to exhibition standard.
I think that they're reasonably easy to grow, but to grow them to the standard at the show is quite difficult. You've got to put a lot of time and effort into it, but it's a challenge.
The event is held each year in a different town, with this being the first time back in Invercargill in over 35 years. But its long absence hasn't stopped the show from attracting more than 700 entries from across the South Island.
Oh, we get great support with growers coming down from up north. They come from Nelson with blooms, Blenheim with blooms, Christchurch right down. And when we host a show down here, we do get great support.
The show was hosted by the Southland Dahlia Circle. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Still to come up after the break on Southern Newsweek, the Australian national cricket team arrives in Dunedin, and first year students get a taste of inter-college sports. So see you after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Tens of thousands of native trees planted near Invercargill are having to compete against tall grass. The group behind the planting is now looking for volunteers to give the natives a boost by releasing them from the surrounding weeds.
In just 2 hours, this working bee of half a dozen volunteers was able to release about 100 native trees that were being strangled by surrounding grass. The trees are just some of the 30,000 that have been planted at Bushy Point near Invercargill Airport over the past 20 years.
They do get choked by grass and overhung by bracken, and generally vegetation competes with the trees for nutrients, and the trees will get a big boost if we can remove the competing vegetation.
The Ototara Land Care Group is managing these 14 hectares which belong to the local council. They're restoring what was once swampy forest with a wide range of native species that once flourished here. However, 100 years of farming means there's now plenty of grass that competes with the young trees. The group spokesman Douglas Black says while there's no shortage of willing hands to plant native trees, getting volunteers to help keep the grass at bay is still needing more coordination.
The releasing is in some situations more critical than the planting. So we just need to release as many trees as we can to give them the best possible chance to survive, and then the forest can grow naturally and it will naturally select what trees are best for the environment, rather than being unlucky and being strangled by grass at birth kind of thing. So hopefully over time we'll build a releasing program that is as productive as the planting one.
He says the growth shown by many of the trees planted over the last 20 years is very promising for the restoration of this forest.
The growth is quite significant. It's really, really encouraging to see how fast the trees grow and prosper.
The group run a 2-hour working bee at Bushy Point on the second last Sunday of each month, starting at 1 p.m. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Big crowds were expected for the Black Caps and White Ferns games against their Australian counterparts. On arrival, the Australian and New Zealand men's cricket teams were given a traditional welcome to the city. Yeehaw!
An Otago boys and Otago girls kapa haka ensemble greeted New Zealand and Australia's international cricket teams as they arrived at Dunedin airport. The two teams will face each other on Thursday for a second time, after the Australians were roundly beaten by 53 runs in the first T20 international game on Monday night. Black Cap player Jimmy Neesham says he doesn't think the 14 days stuck in a hotel should have had a detrimental effect on the Australian team.
I think a lot's been made of the quarantine and the 14 days that Australia have just gone through, but we've seen other teams around the world come out of quarantines and play really well in their first couple of games. So we certainly weren't being complacent. We knew they'd come out and fire a few shots, and I think we saw at the very beginning of the game they put us under a lot of pressure. And
Neesham says in T20 cricket it doesn't really matter who wins the coin toss and gets to choose if they start batting or bowling.
It's not that important in T20 cricket. I think the game's sort of so short that the pitch conditions don't often change all that much. So whatever we do first, it's just about putting a strong performance in the first half of the game and then trying to bring it home.
And while there's been some spirit of camaraderie as sports teams face the COVID-19 crisis, the Black Caps are still very much out to try and beat Australia in the second game.
This sort of battle to get professional cricket back underway internationally, I think there's been a bit of a feeling that all sort of professional cricketers are kind of in it together a little bit. But having said that, it's never a friendly game with the Australians. Both teams want to win quite badly, and there's obviously a few guys who played together in the IPL and over in England and those sorts of places as well. So there's that friendly rivalry too. And just like when you're playing in the backyard against your brother or sister, those are sometimes the games you want to win the most. So we're certainly not going to take the foot off the throat in game two, and the aim is definitely to go up 2-0 in the series and then hopefully close it out after that.
The second match against Australia is set for Thursday at Dunedin's University Oval, with a forecast of 16 degrees and chance showers. In Dunedin, the South Today.
First-year students went head-to-head recently at a Dunedin sporting arena. Throughout the year, the 16 residential colleges will compete in the annual inter-college competition.
All 16 University of Otago residential colleges got to face off against each other for the first time this year at Dunedin's Logan Park for the Collegiate Sports Day. Inter-college competition lead coordinator Daniel Ward says the day is all about having a good time while playing in a team.
No points are taken today, no scores are kept, so it is just about coming down, having fun, giving it a go, and experiencing sort of what first year is all about.
The halls of residence will be competing against each other throughout the year in sports, cultural and game events.
This is a real good taster of it, and then it picks up from here on in. So they get to sort of see each other, see who they're up against for the year, and then we're into the real competitive stuff after that.
The day includes netball, volleyball and football, all played on the grass, plus touch rugby played on Logan Park's recently acquired artificial turf. Cultural and musical performances plus a barbecue are also on offer. New events added in the last few years include a relay plus a tug of war, which this year was won by University College. The School of Physiotherapy was also on hand, offering fitness testing for any first years curious about their own physical prowess.
The physio school, they come on down and they help out with any little niggles, but they also do a wee bit of fitness testing here today as well, so anyone interested in testing their capabilities, they're here to doing some testing on that, which is quite cool.
Preliminary lectures at the University of Otago are set to be held this Friday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The New Zealand women's cricket team, the White Ferns, arrived at Dunedin Airport ahead of their matches against England this weekend. Showcasing the team's Māori culture, they were able to respond to the greeting with their own waiata.
This is the first time the New Zealand national women's cricket team, the White Ferns, have been able to respond to a greeting when arriving at an airport with a waiata of their own.
been practicing very hard. I think last year we had a very similar welcome, and we absolutely loved it. We probably weren't as well prepared as we were this time, so it was nice to be able to respond.
The team have arrived in Dunedin to play the second and third of 3 one-day internationals against England. And with a World Cup being played on home shores, it's a chance to showcase not only New Zealand, but Maori culture.
Really proud of the girls. It's certainly not perfect, but it's definitely something that we're really proud of, and we're working hard on it, absolutely making sure that we're making it a really key part of our team.
After a loss against England on Tuesday, Devine says they're looking forward to the next 2 games.
We have to stick at it for longer periods of time more consistently. So look, we're going to have a chat actually this afternoon and review yesterday's match, and fingers crossed we can turn the tables on Friday.
The forecast for Friday and the weekend is warm temperatures with a possibility of rain. In Dunedin, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz or follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.